Hey, look at you with the fresh haircut.
Thank you. I just cut it 10 minutes ago.
You did it yourself?
Yes, I always cut my hair myself. I'm cheap. I don't let anybody cut my hair.
I am so because I used to cut my own hair and it was okay-ish because I would literally just shave my head, but it would take like 4 or 5 hours to do it because I couldn't see I couldn't see the back of my head. And so I would just do a crazy shit show with my arm, like, and try to hold a mirror up or my phone reflection up to see what's going on. And it just never worked out. And luckily I have a wife that's been cutting my hair for the past 3 years, and she gets it done in like, what, 10, 15 minutes?
Nice. Oh my gosh. My arms would be so tired to do it in 4 hours. I think now I can do it in 15 minutes. I'm just done and boom.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is you don't even have like a amateur shaved head thing. It seems like you have a nice fade thing going on, like a little, like, hair on the top and like bald on the sides and the back. Like it looks barbershop quality. So you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I've gotten used to it. I've cut my hair for the last 12 years on my own. So now I'm kind of just like, okay, I got this.
What? Oh my God. Yeah, because barbershops, I mean, God, I think the last time I went to a barbershop, it was like 17, 18 bucks for a haircut. Black barbershops, they don't play. So you saved yourself maybe hundreds to thousands of dollars over the last, 15 years or so.
Yes, I feel like I'm going to be so old. Like you young whippersnappers don't know. The last time I got my hair cut, it was $10 for a fade, $5 for an edge up. So that's how long I've been out of the loop of going to barbershops.
Yeah, so you are certainly not missing anything fun. I think that with inflation especially, like, I don't know, I could go back to a barbershop for the first time in 7, 8, 9 years, and who knows, it might be in the 20s now, it might be in the 30s. So you and I are taking the cheap route, and that's nothing to be ashamed about.
It's worth it. I have to tell everybody, I don't know any of our listeners if you're part of the LGBTQ club, but if you're gay and black, going to a black barbershop is an experience as a gay man. And if you've had it and want to share it with us, because you go in and it's very manly man, and you're going to hear something homophobic in a black barbershop a lot of the times if you're gay and black.
Okay, so I was confused because I thought at first you meant that a gay black man was owning a barbershop and that there was an LGBTQ experience centered around that. But no, now I know what you mean. You're talking about like the typical straight black barbershop and a gay black man such as yourself walking in. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, talking as a straight man, even I was like uncomfortable by the very rigid masculinity that was happening there. So that I definitely don't miss.
Neither do I. I think that's another reason why I initially started cutting my own hair, because I was like, oh, I don't miss going to a barbershop. This was never fun for me.
Yeah. Well, what I have missed is our episode recaps. I feel like it's been, over a week since we recorded one?
Yeah, it's been 10 and a half days. I'm thinking about it.
I love how you know the specific amount of days. I was just thinking like, maybe like a week and a half, a week and some half days. You knew it by the second. Oh my God.
I'm a creature of routine. So when something doesn't happen on my routine schedule, I'm like, whoa, what's happening? Something's wrong.
Yeah. Well, glad to come back here and recap season 1, episode 18, Sitting Pretty. Original air date, February 23rd, 1990. Written by Ken Kuda. Again, Rich Correll. He's directing this one. We have a shit ton of guest stars, and I think we're going to have to get used to this because, I don't know, maybe you tell me. Do you remember over the course of your Family Matters watching experience, like seeing a shit ton of guest stars for almost every episode as the show went on?
Oh yeah, as the show went on more and more, you knew you were getting guest star after guest star, and it just really became like one of those sketch shows where there's just tons of guests every time.
Yeah, it's all that Family Matters style with a musical guest in it.
I missed that about all that. I can't lie.
Oh my God. Hey, by the way, all that, they celebrated their 30th anniversary recently. Yeah. The pilot episode. Yeah, so we're recording this on, what is it, the 19th of April?
It is, oh my God, it's 420 Eve. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. So for all of you about to, get high, or maybe you got the marijuana Christmas tree and the stockings and the presents, and you're ready for high Santa Claus to come by and celebrate 420 day for you on 420 Eve, then yeah, 420 is quite on the way. You are quite right. But I think all that premiered April 15th or 16th of 94. It was a confusing thing where they had like a pilot test episode air, and then like it wasn't picked up for like a regular weekly series until like Christmas Eve of 1994. So yeah, a lot of people, consider the very first airing of all that back in April of 94 to be the true anniversary. And I mean, especially with the Quiet on Set docuseries that came out, I mean, you have some people on social media that are like, oh man, this hits different now. So kind of sad, but I think also sort of worth celebrating still, because it was, I mean, they didn't know at the time, but the edgy comedy, the diversity of the cast, that's something that I didn't pick up until Wikipedia told me. I mean, you had Black, Hispanic, a little bit of white, and it was a groundbreaking show by all means, and I think should still be celebrated, even though that there are some horrible backstage things associated with it.
Yes, all that is a staple in my life, a staple as a childhood moment, because it is what sparked my interest in the television industry in the first place. And despite all the bad, those actors, those actresses, those people who actually, worked hard and did the work that created all that and not harm children, y'all are amazing. And that still deserves to be recognized because it's groundbreaking.
Yeah, we give you your flowers, all of that production team. We also give the Family Matters production team their flowers for giving us quite an episode to recap. But first, let's get to the guest stars. Jaleel White, of course, he's Steve Urkel. Ebony Smith returning once again as Penny Pizer. I like the sort of recurring stability of Eddie and Laura's friends that we're getting here. It's like, oh, okay, we know that Penny is set up as Laura's best friend. We know that Rodney, unfortunately, is set up as Eddie's best friend. I like that. I wish that they would have continued that throughout the whole series. But for now, it's like, oh, okay. I like that comfort food of pointing out Penny and Rodney and being like, hey, I know you guys.
Yeah, it's kind of like you see somebody at the club and you're like, I know you. It's nice to see you here again.
Yeah. And we have Teddy Wilson as Captain Casper Davenport. Unfortunately, this motherfucker died a year later. He died in 1991. I was looking at his IMDb and I'm like, what the hell? Like, what? How? Do you know what the cause was? Do you know anything about that?
I don't. All I did was look up IMDb and I saw he was dead. And I'm like, how was this man dead? And something happened.
Yeah. And he was born in 43. So he wasn't that old in 91, even though he looks kind of oldish in this episode. So I have to look into that. That was kind of sad to find that out. We have Tim Russ. Tim Russ is playing Rachel's fabulous date, Jeff. Malachi Pearson is Rambo, who I believe is the kid that was literally dressed as Rambo. He was one of the chaotic babysitting shit show kids. Christopher Fong is kid number 1. That doesn't help, but IMDb describes it that way. So you know what I'm talking about when I say kid number 1?
I have no idea who kid number 1 is because there's 100 kids in this episode.
Yeah, pretty much. Jonathan Fong. So I guess Jonathan and Christopher are like young brothers who are child actors who got into family. Jonathan Fong is kid number 2. Carlton McQueen is Murphy twin number 1. Raymond McQueen is Murphy twin number 2. Murphy twins are referenced, I would say, a few times, so we kind of get an idea of what they are. Our Hulu synopsis is the Winslow home fills with children when Laura starts a babysitting service. Now, for you listening, we're going to continue to experiment with the format of this show. Maybe you have noticed in our recent episodes that we have ended the episode with our rating system. But Andrew and I, we had a discussion off air and we decided, you know what, let's try theming the episode around the rating system. So Andrew, since you came up with this fabulous rating system, do you mind explaining to people what exactly it is?
So our rating system is taking your delicious episode and we're going to make this a meal because this should be a meal. This entire experience should be TV on a plate or a platter platter, or like a ramen bowl. However you enjoy your food, you get it. So we've got our appetizer, which is like what drew you into this episode, but what really captivated your attention. You could maybe go for a little bit more. Maybe you want to have like extra little mozzarella stick with your dinner tonight, and that's fine. Then we've got like our entree. That's your like sustenance. That's your meal that's going to make you full after leaving this restaurant. You came to this restaurant for this portion of the meal, and it should be filling and being there. It's not always going to happen, but it should be. Then here's your dessert. That's the end of your dinner. Now, it's not the end of the episode. It's just whatever made you feel like, oh, this topped off the whole entire meal I had. This is the good finishing statement. I don't need anything else after this. And then we've got our junk food, which is just all the garbage. Anything that had no value to it all. You could just get rid of it. It could essentially be granola from Costco, which is only made of wallpaper. And I'm stopping there, Costco, because you know what you did to me. But that's the rating system.
I gotta know about your Costco granola story. What the hell happened there? Why is there granola made out of wallpaper?
I bought a bag of granola there. I was doing a DoorDash order, and I just bought a bag of granola to have. And it was supposed to be s'mores granola clusters. And I was eating it, and John, I swear I ate a piece of a wall. Like, it was hard, it was dry, it was flavorless, it flaked. Which that's not what granola is supposed to do. I didn't like it. It was disgusting.
You know, it's interesting you say that because, like, even though, like, I've always had pretty tasty granola bars, I also have this association of granola as like, oh, it's like this, like, hippie food, and thus, you know, is kind of like that toilet paper that is really uncomfortable on your butt, but it saves the environment. So I almost feel like maybe it's granola's duty to somewhat taste like cardboard to be good for you, or no? Am I wrong on that?
No, granola should not taste like that. Like, there's oats, there's dried out things, there's crunchy granola, but granola to me should still taste like a food. It shouldn't turn into a powder that I feel is going to converge into a solid in my stomach after I eat it.
Okay, good point. Good point. What did you think about it? Give me your rating.
So for this episode for me was an Uber Eats order for me. Like, I got some things that I wanted from this episode, and then I was left unfulfilled on a lot of it, where I was like, oh, they really forgot my egg rolls, and I wanted my egg rolls, and they were in this episode. But overall, it was not bad.
Okay. All right. So break it down for me. I mean, I do Uber Eats and DoorDash full time, so I can personally relate to what you're talking about. What was your appetizer, your main course, your dessert, and junk food?
My appetizer for this episode, one, I love Tim Russ. If you like Tim Russ like I do, I have the biggest crush on Tim Russ. I have had the biggest crush on him since 1996 when I started watching Star Trek Voyager. And if you do not know who he was on there, he was Lieutenant Tuvok, very hot man. But that was my appetizer. As soon as I saw he was in this episode, because I didn't watch the episode first, I actually did something different and went to the IMDb first and saw he was in the episode. And immediately I was like, oh, I'm happy. This is somebody I want to see. The second part of my appetizer for this was we get a Rachel episode about her dating. We get an episode about her dating.
We do, but man, it could have been a full episode. This was in my opinion, this was the B story that was sort of shoved aside in favor of two A stories, one of which I thought did not need to happen. But go ahead. I'll explain more when I do my rating system.
Oh, I get it. I'm just going to be very honest with you. This was something where I could have just, like you said, had Rachel on her own in this episode. I could have had her by herself in this episode, and it would have been fantastic. My entree. So we're going to talk about the entree that never arrived. This is the portion of my meal that the driver left on the counter, or the restaurant was just like, oh, he doesn't want that, even though he put that on his order. There was nothing. There was nothing actually fulfilling for me in the center of this episode. And what should have been there is Rachel's date. We should have gotten to go on the date with Rachel. We should have gotten to see Rachel's dating days with Jeff, the guy that she's going to be dating in this episode. We could have gotten so much more, and we got cheated. We got none of that. So my entree was missing. The dessert, though, this part I really did like. The ending of the show. The end of the show is so good that it just made me feel like I wanted to just take a big bowl of it home. Like, let me just eat the rest of this episode at the very end, because we get an interaction between Rachel and Jeff that I just love. And it kind of reminds me of what I'm going through now, getting to know somebody and dating. So that was relatable. And then the junk food, everything else, get rid of it. Throw it out. Get the rest of this episode out of here. All those kids, get them out. I don't even know why you had them. Get them out.
Yeah. Okay. So it looks like your main course and your junk food are fairly similar, and I get that. I get that. So what you mean by the stuff besides Rachel's date with Jeff, where she is having a good time with this guy and she's struggling to find out if she should tell him that she has a kid. The other two stories, the two A stories, we have Laura, like she has her babysitting service that she wants to start based on just one night where she's just coming home. She's tired from the babysitting duties that she's been doing as someone who's been working for someone else. And then suddenly, very quickly in the blink of an eye, it's like, oh, I need to start my own business. And so that's our A story. And then the other one was, Carl trying to impress Captain Davenport because Carl wants to be promoted to lieutenant, and Captain Davenport is the one to get him there. I guess Davenport wants to, or is able to put in like a captain's recommendation to make it happen for Carl. So those are our two stories there. I'm curious, before I get into my rating system, what about those two A stories were unfulfilling for you?
The entirety of them. Laura learning this business motto of, I'm going to become a babysitting tycoon is so season 9 that I just was not okay with it, where it's like, how did we get here? Because there was, and now we will talk about it more in detail, but there is actually a lot that could have come from Laura's story that could have been so much better in an episode of its own, focused on the kids. And now I'm mixing and matching these episodes here because, it's the only thing that I think about this story with Laura. The creators of the show and the producers are creating a show that was going to be canceled a few episodes ago until they brought in to Steve. And now they're trying to figure out this balance of this physical humor, this comedic kid, these other cast members. How can we put them in these hijinks situations that really are starting to make our ratings go up? But now there's this like uneven balance. Like, I feel like this episode, they just kept throwing things into the pot and then all of a sudden it overflowed and we were left with this episode. So like Laura's story could have been left out completely. I didn't hold any interest in it because it's just not realistic. And then Carl's story could have been another great episode because we've seen other sitcoms do this, but it was just so rushed. There was no content to fill into that little section that we got with Carl and his lieutenant and how this could have affected him and Harriet.
Yeah, I think that the great thing about Rich Correll's directing that we've said is that like there's a pace. There is a difference. We've already talked about how it's like night and day going from the pre-Rich Correll episodes to now the episodes that's been happening since he, took the helm of director. There is just more of an animated, fun, comedic, zany thing going on. And that can be great for laughs here and there. And you and I have both had them, especially on Urkel's end. But there's downsides, there's going to be moments where you want more substance. You want more background. Something like The Quilt, which, again, ironically, that was like the last episode before Urkel came in. Other people would argue that like, oh, God, show should be canceled, but it's like, no, that's actually when shit got interesting. And now, we're clearly trying to cater to short, family-friendly attention spans just to get our highest ratings. And, it's an unfortunate thing, but this is the ride that we've chosen to go on. I'll break down my rating system here. So my appetizer for the umpteenth time is the cold open, because there's just something about the way these Urkel cold opens are working now. And we have seen those Urkel cold opens when before he actually came in episode 12, the syndication mess. And I was biased because, chronologically, like, this is not what it should be. Like, give us the original cold opens, not these Urkel syndicated cold open. But now that everything is chronologically where it needs to be, Urkel is where he needs to be right now. They're just doing something with that kid where if you put him in a cold open, you give him his natural, nerdy, funny goofiness, like he can make the show pop from the start. So I thought that Steve came in with an unusually, for him especially, an unusually bold amount of energy when he's asking Laura, Eddie, and Judy if they want to, come with him to the Chicago Rock and Mineral Show or the boat show, something like that. And he had this, nice thing going on where, after, of course, Laura, is like, oh, Steve, I'll pass. I'm busy. And, Steve was like, oh, I didn't see what night it is. And then I think it was after that where, he was looking at his other options and he's like, Eddie, Judy, and then wraps up very funnily because all of a sudden baby Richie can walk. You see him walking, and Steve is like, Richie, as the last big effort to get someone to go with him to the rock and roll show. So it was cute, man. It was a cute, amusing firecracker way to start the show. I think as long as Urkel is doing his thing right now in these cold opens, that's usually going to be my appetizer. So that's so that was my buffalo and barbecue chicken wings. I'm getting some spicy meatiness that's going to get this thing going. And then the main course happened. And that main course, I would think, just imagine somebody giving you, oh God, it's like a mixture of it's like a burrito, a PB&J sandwich, too much heavy food that an athlete would have, after they have swam 100 miles or ran 100 miles. You know that state that you get where you really worked up an appetite, you're so anxiously hungry, you'll eat every single carb imaginable, no matter if it matches or not. And then a few bites in, you're like, oh God, that's awful. What did I do to myself? That's what I felt like I got with the main course. We were just bouncing back and forth between Carl trying to please his captain to get a lieutenant promotion, Laura with her babysitting service that she was trying to start that obviously went awry with all the kids going fucking crazy around the house. And then Rachel's date with Jeff on the side. Hey, look, these three stories would be fine in an hour format, but I think when you have 23 minutes, there's only so much substance you can cover with each of them. I found it very confusing with the Captain Davenport part of it, how he went from this serious, intimidating guy that Carl needs to please and impress with, I know how to fish, Captain Davenport. I can fish. We could go fishing sometime. So he has that vibe. And then suddenly, Captain Davenport, by force, is encountering all these kids that Laura has to babysit, and they're tying him up, they're taping his mouth, and he's enjoying it. And then it ends up that, oh yeah, based on the enjoyment of the time with the kids, that makes Carl valid for a promotion. That made me question if Captain Davenport was fit for his leadership role. I don't think he is, based on something like that. And then with the Laura babysitting thing, I thought that story didn't need to be necessary at all because I felt like it was something that we already saw before, because it reminded me of the Baker's Dozen episode where it's the Winslow family, they get very ambitious and try to have a business in the home, a family business. They don't put much thought into it. And because they don't put much thought into it, things go crazy. We saw that happen with the lemon cream tart business that Carl tried to start with the family, and Laura, with not much thought, she has 15, 20, 30 fucking kids going around the house. One kid is dressed up as Rambo shooting darts into people's foreheads. I mean, it's a story that we've already seen before. So we could have gotten that taken out. And I think that the two stories that we're left with, the Captain Davenport one and the Rachel's date, I mean, those should be two separate episodes. I would have loved to have seen more of a fleshed out thing, say with the Captain Davenport thing, because it kind of goes into what Carl is willing to do to move up into the world. Is he willing to sacrifice his authentic self for the sake of a job promotion? That could have been an interesting story with both comedic and dramatic elements. Rachel's date with Jeff. I mean, you and I have already talked about man, Rachel's dating some good men. Why are they leaving? Why are they going? And then a valid reason gets brought along where it's like, oh yeah, like Rachel has a kid. Not only that, she's living in quite the fucking house with her sister and the husband and the kids and the grandmother. I mean, that's a lot for a guy to take in. So maybe there is some validity to Rachel being like, oh yeah, you're a good guy, but I'm going to kind of step back and run away from you. So that could have been an interesting episode on its own. And speaking of Rachel's date with Jeff, that goes into my dessert. I don't know if you noticed, personally me, I mean, maybe this is like straight man bias coming here, but I thought she had some sexy date dresses. I thought the first one, like both of them were in great contrast. So the first one was like this long, flowery dress. It went down to her ankles, and it was it had this mixture of like innocence, but also just like bold, sexy beauty. Like it's like, oh yeah, like I'm giving you a taste of what you're gonna get, but I'm also being like dignified about it. So I liked that. And then she had some like black sparkly dress later on that was a little bit short, but whatever. I mean, Thelma Hopkins, she's great. I mean, I think that was fine to, really show off that sex appeal. So that's my dessert. And I think the additional parts of the dessert that I wanted to point out, I think that Harriet, Carl, and Judy had some great lines. That scene where Carl is practicing with a fishing pole in the kitchen, and then he accidentally gets the fishing pole caught in a curtain behind him, a window curtain behind him. Harriet comes in, and I think she said something in the matter of like, "Oh, Carl, you want me to fry that or throw it back?" So I love that like quick, witty sassiness that she continues to have. And then there was another moment where Carl wants to take Captain Davenport fishing. Harriet thinks that that's not necessary, and he should just talk to the captain at the station. Carl tells Harriet she doesn't know what she's talking about, and Harriet sarcastically is like, God me, oh wise one. And Carl's comeback of like, I'll give you a guide. Like, and then he just walks away. I love that moment. That was a great moment. And then I'm surprised you didn't catch this Judy moment when Eddie was like anxiously answering the phone in the kitchen, waiting for a date to make his Friday night. And then the phone call was actually for Laura. And Eddie starts to go on this insecure thing of like, am I still handsome? Am I handsome as I was 2 weeks ago? And you have Judy just standing right by him. Eddie, get a life. It was great. I'm surprised you didn't pick up on that.
It was a cute little moment. It was cute. But for that moment, I wanted something bigger. Like, because they were trying to develop we were at an ABC and then a D story with Eddie not getting a date. I was so overwhelmed with everything else that was happening that I was like, get him, Judy. But then it just didn't resonate with me. It was so like small compared to what I really enjoyed.
Yeah, you were all about Jeff and his little mini 80s, 90s fro and his double-breasted suit that was a little bit too big for him, a little mustache there. I'm not familiar with Tim Russ's work outside of this episode, so I'm fascinated that you were drawn to him, and also you're familiar with his work on Star Trek.
Yes, because I'm a Trekkie, so I love Tim Russ. To just say it again, if you ever watch the scene when it come on, just read to me, just say the alphabet. I'm not going to ask him a single question, John. You will have to ask him all the questions, but I'm just going to sit here and say, Tim, just talk.
And then there was a nice moment of Carl claiming to Captain Davenport that he loves fishing, and then Harriet was just like, oh yeah, Carl the other day just caught an 8-pound curtain. Like, it just zappy, snappy Harriet, even when she potentially ruins a job promotion for Carl. I love it. Give me more of that. So that's what I had for my dessert. My junk food, I think I already mentioned the babysitting story. Oddly enough, it's the lead thing. I mean, that's what we're leading, is the babysitting service with Laura, because then that affects how the job promotion thing with Carl goes, because obviously it leads to Captain Davenport encountering the kids and surprisingly liking them. Oh my god. But I think if you had taken that story away and really zoned in on those two other stories of the job promotion and the Rachel's date with Jeff, we could have gotten some classic pre-Urkel, like moving Family Matters goodness. And what we got instead was an episode where a lot was happening. And I think this show, especially with Urkel on board, not quite the star yet. I'm noticing that he's not there, but he's, just in little bits. And this is a show that seemed to, they tried an identity and then that wasn't working for them. So then Urkel kind of shifted things. And now they got to figure out, like, okay, how do we shift things to keep ourselves on the air with this guy? So now they're kind of doing this balancing act of, little Urkel to give audiences what they're looking for, those laughs, but at the same time, like remembering that the Winslows are the one that built this. So how do we take the Winslows and influence them in this sort of Urkel pace now? I mean, this is a show that's trying to experiment and trying to figure out who they are. And that, I guess, is going to lead to some clunkers of an episode that we may experience for the remainder of this season, maybe even season 2. Who knows? So yeah, there you go. But that's my rating system. I got more of an appetizer and dessert than I got with a main course. The main course is definitely something that I'm not going to take home.
Okay, so no doggy bag. We're just going to leave it on the table and tell the staff it was good, but not actually tip them.
I will still tip the staff, dude. Andrew, you do DoorDash. you try doing it full time. So before I service industry, I was very frugal about tipping, and now that I'm in it, I am very passionately against no tippers and low tippers. I have words because when these people know the amount of work that it takes, and then it's like you look at the fucking thing and it's like, what? $2? So the DoorDash base pay is what I'm getting, and then you're not giving me anything for the convenience of dropping it off to you when you're like a minute away from the restaurant. Even if the food is terrible, Andrew, I'm still going to tip the server because I understand what it's like being in the service industry. I now know.
Hey, welcome to the other side, John. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Everybody out there tip. I would not tip for this episode. I would be very upset.
Oh God! You know what? I see some validity in what you're saying. I hope that the remainder of the season we can get a little bit of a boost. But in their defense, I mean, 22, 24 episode seasons. It's hard not to have a clunker every now and then. Like it's a lot of writing, a lot of creativity that has to go out there. So yeah,
this is one of those episodes, if we're going to break it down even further, I would say it's one of those episodes where we could have taken parts out of these episodes and combined them with other episodes we've seen and created a very good show here. Like, for example, Laura and her babysitting thing, we need to change the story because the story just is not, the story of it is what doesn't work for me. It's so unrealistic because it would never happen. But if we took Laura's babysitting, combined it with Eddie's promotion to produce and made that one episode, the siblings are competing on creating a better business plan for themselves, would have been fantastic. I would have loved all of that. That would have been so delicious to have. We could have had freaking Carl in the story with the sergeant, and then we could have had Grandma Winslow's night out. We can be like, oh my God, Carl's entertaining somebody at the house. We could see what happened with Mama Winslow when she went to go visit Frank. Like, we could have had these things happen, and it could have been so good.
Yeah, I could see some. I'm also thinking that Mama Winslow and Captain Davenport, I mean, they seem to be around the same age, so maybe some kind of physical attraction story could have happened there. It would have been inappropriate by today's standards, but maybe something like, Carl, I'm Captain Davenport, and I can give you a promotion if you would let me go out with your mother.
Okay, now that takes it to a whole creepy level. Yeah. I wasn't going there.
I know you weren't. I know you weren't. It was just a thought that came to my mind because I've been so busy and tired, and this is all I got for you.
Yeah, it works. I was going to say Mama Winslow goes on a date and then finds out that Carl's getting a promotion but can't tell him. That would have been fun.
Yeah, that would have been something. That would have been something for sure.
As far as the episode that made me want more, because for me, my rating is just that this is the entree that never happened and I was hoping for it. So did anything speak to you when Rachel was starting to give her story of like, oh, this is the anxiety I face when it goes out with going with these new guys? Because remember, the last time she was talking about dating somebody, she was like, I feel like I'm moving on from my dead husband and I feel bad about moving on. Now it's like, okay, I've started to move on, but now I've got this whole expansive story that I can tell about my dating experience. Was there any part of the story that you specifically wanted them to dive into?
I mean, I totally forgot that she was widowed. So I think that diving into that would have been something. I think what Rachel has working against her with still trying to recover from aphids and living in a very animated house and having a child, being a single mom. I think that can lead to one having a very overwhelming life. So how does she carry all that into a date? How does she manage to be this comical, pleasant, bright personality that she is with all that going on? I think that would be worth exploring. Do you have a coping mechanism, Rachel? Like, what do you do to keep yourself so sane and happy and energetic and bubbly every day when you have all this on your shoulders?
Oh my God, John, you just gave me a whole new episode idea. So, Rachel, this episode is focused on her going on a date with Jeff. The entire episode takes place on their date. So let's say Jeff picks up Rachel from the house and they go to a restaurant. They go to that Italian restaurant that Alan and his family own. They're at the restaurant. They sit down. And as the episode starts, we get taken on a flashback to one of Rachel's previous dates that went bad because either the guy found out she lives with the family, she's got a baby, her dead husband, and the guy kind of just freaks out. So we see this episode play out of Rachel and Jeff on this date. And then our first cut back is when they're sitting down. The second time we see them, they're having their entree oh my God, I need to be a producer. They're having their appetizer at the table. The appetizer comes out. We see them talking, having a little date interaction. And then we get a flashback to a second date. This could have been a whole episode of just dating for Rachel. We could have seen fashion choices, cute men, fun romantic moments. And then we could see the heartbreak of dating. And then Jeff is the mainstay throughout this episode. He's possibly the potential who's going to make it through. And then we get the end of the episode the same way it ends in the show. This could have been perfect.
It would have been. It would have been. I mean, I think that would have been a fantastic idea, and one that the writing staff would have explored if they were either people of color or if they had very extensive imaginations. But unfortunately, we were dealing with a writing staff that thought in terms of like a mainstream sitcom that needs to just go. And I think that Rachel's story would have been great. Would have been great. So this is definitely our shortest episode ever.
I feel like we should have like a little music play, like "Welcome to the Delicious Recap Light Edition." We're cutting calories this episode.
Yeah, we're going on. We're going on Rachel's water only diet. Oh God, where she thought like where that last episode, the big reunion one, where I think she only needed like a piece of lemon and some water to keep her going.
She's like, "No, hold the lemon. I'm watching my figure."
Yep. Oh God, that Rachel, she's quite something.
I'm sorry, Rich. I know you were experimenting with things, but this episode did not like imprint on me well.
And I hope the next one does. Eddie stands up for Steve as he's getting bullied by somebody.
Oh, I didn't realize that we were getting to that episode. This episode is actually memorable for me.
I know. I can't wait for it. It's called it's called In a Jam. Original air date March 16th, 1990, season 1, episode 19. Adam emailed us a few times at thedeliciousrecap@gmail.com. He's a fan of the show, so thank you, Adam. He was like, in his first email, he said, "Hi, guys. I like Laura's first date, and I'm a Steve Urkel fan." And like the line that Steve Urkel said, "Oh, wow, are you wearing a bra?" That was his favorite line. And he said, "Thanks, and let the deliciousness ring." He loves our phrase.
I love that he loves our phrase. We're keeping it because of you repeating it.
We're trademarking it. We're putting it as a bumper sticker. We're tattooing it. We're going to be rebranding, but that is one of the things that I want to keep because I think there is just a nice, fun comfort in having a regular ending catchphrase like that.
It's perfect. And you know what I just thought about? Now, okay, you guys listening, this is going to be a realm into the behind the scenes of this podcast because I just thought of something that I feel like would be like a creme de la creme moment. Every time we say let the deliciousness ring, like a serving bell at a restaurant when your order's ready, it goes ding, play the ding sound.
Well, speaking of that slogan, Well, at Family Matters We Watch Pod on our socials: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Threads. How can people follow you, Andrew?
So you guys can follow me at AJ Vanderton on all of the socials. Yes, my Facebook is still active. It is. And I saw somebody sent me a non-dick pic. So I did respond to your message. And I hope that you enjoy the show. They specifically asked me not to read their message out loud on the show, so I'm not going to read it just yet. But Johnny will tell you what they said. But it's nothing like crazy. They just enjoy the show. So I will read it to you. But you can follow me on all the socials at AJ Vanderton. I am still working on my campaign to get Waffle House and Tekken 8. If you follow me on TikTok, you will know what I'm talking about. I am determined. And we can work together. I just need your support.
I'm sorry, wait, what? Waffle House what? Say that one more time.
I want the restaurant Waffle House to be put in the fighting game Tekken 8. They need to do it. The creators of Tekken have responded. They have said that they are interested. They need to get confirmation from Waffle House that the trademark can be used. And I'm trying to get people's attention as best I can. I have 2 videos posted that are very important about it. So if you're on TikTok and you see it, spread the word, because I want Waffle House to be in Tekken. It needs to be there.
All right. I'm with you on that advocation, my friend. Give me something, as you say our closing catchphrase, let it be related to how we're trying something new out here and we're just figuring it out, and we appreciate your patience. Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure all of you can relate. You go on to a website, whatever you order your food through, and you see a restaurant that looks a little sketchy. It looks a little weird, and you're just like, okay, I don't know if I should try them out, because all the pictures look like stock photos, or it looks like the food comes in black bags that you get from a porn shop. It's okay, because even things in a porn shop, they ring, and deliciousness rings on your taste buds, so give it a try. It'll be a little weird, but try it out. Let that deliciousness ring.